Hello, so in this video I'm going to show you how to pin some coleopterans. So for beetles, you're going to want to pin just to the right of the body, just to the right of the midline, and you want to go through the elytra, and again shoot to end right around that second pair of legs. You don't want to put the pin through this segment because then it would be really back heavy and that would be incorrect. And so typically that second pair of legs and the midline is about where you're going to go. So here I have a very large beetle, but this isn't probably what you'll be pinning most of the time. It's usually going to be something a little smaller, maybe this size. So we'll pin both today. So we'll start with this big one because it should be nice and easy. And we're just gonna shoot for just right of the center and in between that second pair of legs. Now I'm looking at this one and the second pair of legs is really close to the top of the elytra. So we may move it like right there. Okay, now what I'm doing is pushing the pin very slowly. I don't want to stab myself, but I want to make sure that the beetle is nice and flat. And so far, to me, it looks like we got it. So perfect. Okay, so you can see where that pin came out. It is on the right side, it's through the correct segment, and it's right next to that second pair of legs. So that's where we want it. If you look, the beetle is perpendicular on the pin, and it isn't leaning forward or backward. So nice and flat. And so what we'll do now is we will push it into the foam. And what you want to do with beetles, especially because their legs and their tarsi are really good for identification, is make sure that everything can be seen, but that they also aren't spread out so that they break. So this beetle is being pretty cooperative, which is nice. And I'm not going to do much more than that because that's in a good spot. Same thing here. Now with those middle legs, I just want to make sure the tarsi don't get too bunched up underneath. And so you can see I was able to pull that out a little bit. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to flatten these tarsi a little bit. There we go, that's better. As always, use as many pins as you want because you want it to stay in the exact shape that you want it to stay in. So now we'll pull this front pair out. And I may even use my forceps for this just because it's a little tight in there. There we go. And you want this pair of legs to come forward, generally, like that. And we'll do the same for this pair. Now I'm going to straighten the tarsi as well so they take up less space once this guy has dried. That's perfect. All right, now the last thing you want to do, especially for a beetle like this with very large antennae, like a cerambycid, is tuck those antennae back over the body and behind so that they don't break, because antennae can also be useful characters. And so these are pretty heavy and thick, which also isn't super typical. And that one is lying pretty much where you'd want it to be. I might pull the back of this up a titch by making a little brace here, just to keep it off the legs. But that looks pretty good. It may be hard to see on camera, but the antennae are not touching the body at all. And so you could look at all those antennal segments. You could look underneath them. There's a lot of visibility there. And so we'll do the same thing for this one. I'm also going to prop this one up just a titch, just so that it dries how I want it to and doesn't sag later. Okay. Let's see. May push that in a little bit. Ooh, just messed up. There we go. So now you can see the antennae come back nice and straight. The legs are all tucked in. They're not taking up a ton of room. And this is not taking up a lot of space in a box. If you were to bring the antennae up, open up the wings, that would take up quite a bit of room. Now for this smaller beetle, it's going to be the same process, just a lot smaller. So I'm going to use my hands here to flip it over. And with this one again, you may be tempted to put it through this segment, but that is incorrect. You want to put it through the elytra above the second leg. So, and around the midline. So right about there. I'll move it so that it's flat, like that. Push the pin through. Check to make sure everything is nice and straight. And that it's not crooked or anything on the pin. And so that looks pretty good. So we'll push it down. I'm just adjusting the legs a little bit. Sometimes the legs can kind of freeze up if they haven't moved in a while, like the coccyx won't really want to move. And so you can gently wake them back up with your fingers. And so we'll push this down into the foam, leaving just enough height at the top of the pin so that I can grab it. And we'll do that same process we did with the cerambycid. So we'll pull those legs up. I like to kind of start in the back because you can use those pins as an anchor so it doesn't move as much later on when you're doing other stuff. But you can start wherever makes the most sense. Oh, and this one is not cooperating. There we go. Okay. So that, like that. I may pull this up a little more just to get the tarsi closer to the body. That looks good. We'll pull this front pair out. Let's see. Use my forceps again. Okay. Like that. And let's see. Okay, so now the legs are all nice and straight. For the most part, I guess he's a little crooked. There we go. Okay, now same thing. Bring those antennae back. Alrighty, and now that one's done. So those are two beetles, very different sizes, different proportions, but they're pinned the same way. And I have a few examples here of what they'll look like once they are fully dry. And so you can see, again, this beetle is nice and perpendicular to the pin. It's got its label, and it goes through that second segment, even though this beetle is very long. And then same thing, this is to show what the antennae will look like. Let's see. Yeah, once it's dried, they're just tucked back over the body like that. And then this is a really small beetle that's on a point. You have to do that for many small beetles, and I'll have another video on how to point insects.